can be a part of the process without having a ham there. Frequencies are channelized, and designators are used rather than frequency. And particularly, you don't have to deal with contest weekends and all the other things that get involved with the ham radio frequencies. This is one of the screenshots from WinLink, and as you can see here, it's set up to operate with AES 256 encryption. If somebody wants to be involved, either as a GAC or a GSS station, you have to have a valid amateur radio license and complete ICS 100, 200, 700, and 800. Why is that? Well, the people at GOSEP need for people they're working with to understand the structure. And if you don't understand the hierarchy and the structure of the ICS system, you're potentially going to make a mess trying to go around or just not be prepared. So they're not hard, they're all free, and probably most of you have taken at least one or two of those. As we mentioned, voice and data can both take place on the shares frequencies, but they can also be taking place on 60 meters, which is a great place to be. WinLink peer-to-peer generally takes place on 70-70, and then the voice frequency probably is not going to be 7255 right now, but there's a voice frequency somewhere. But the advantage of the 5 megahertz frequencies is you can do voice and data at the same time. What are some of the requirements? Must be able to operate efficiently on 80, 60, and 40. Be able to do digital and voice modes and have a registered version of VARA HF. For those of you that don't know what VARA is, it's a mode like there's PACTOR and there's PSK31 and those sorts of things. Well, VARA is a mode for HF, VHF, UHF that provides a scaled transmission level depending on the signal to noise ratio and the ability for the station on the far end to receive. Speeds are comparable to PACTOR 3, and it's solid. It's an ARQ mode, that is, everything gets acknowledged. So if it finishes that transmission, you know the station that received it got what you sent. If you do PSK 31 or MT63, it's a one-way mode. You can transmit it, but you've got no assurance of what happened on the other end. You need a station that can hear weak stations. Unfortunately, some people have moved into or live in environments where the RF noise around their house has gotten a lot worse from solar panels and all kind of things. Just the general noise level is significantly increased for a lot of people. So you need to have a station that can hear other stations. And you need to have an antenna system that works for statewide coverage. If you have a 80-meter vertical with 130 radials, you live in Shreveport, you're not going to talk to Baton Rouge. It'll work really well way out, but that won't work talking locally around the state within 100 or 200 miles. What are participation requirements? The state needs to know and have some assurance that you're able to do it and that you practice enough to stay proficient. So there are exercises that take place around the state, and there are regular training activities that take place. What's expected of a GAC? That's the volunteer that's working at GOSEP. They're expected to volunteer at GOSEP in real world events and be available. and be able to handle the requirements of operating the station at GOSEP. Similarly, the GSS stations, the support stations are expected to volunteer, do training, and be able to support the mission. All right, how does this look again? If this is GOSEP in Baton Rouge, if you're local, you can send amateur voice, amateur WinLink using Vera FM. You can use shares HF with WinLink Telnet or WinLink peer-to-peer directly to GOSEP. Through the HF side, have the similar WinLink Telnet and WinLink peer-to-peer. And you don't need anybody in the middle. There's a hierarchy of transmission methods that have been developed to do three things: provide the most secure, the most easy, and the most speedy transmission between 2 points. The GSS stations, the support stations, generally follow these transmission methods, and I'm going to show you that here in a minute. Generally start with number one, go down the list. If you can't do number one or number two, you can do number three. And then subject lines are formatted so that GOSEP has the information they need that they can quickly look at without having to read a whole message. What they need, for example, is what it is. Is it a resource request? Is it a 9-line medevac? What's the incident number? What's the parish name and a parish tracking number? You don't have to read through a whole long message and try to pick out all those pieces. Somebody can just simply look at that and find it. All right, now, hopefully you can read this. Glenn, can y'all see part of that or too little? Anyway, starting up here at the top, number one, use shares. If the internet's working at both places during that period of time, you just send the regular email to esf2@la.gov with a copy to Cleve Franklin at GOSEP. You can use Telnet WinLink, and you're done. You don't have to turn the radio on. The other part of that is you're not going to clog up the channel with RF when somebody else needs it. So we need to be efficient, but we also need to be aware that somebody may need something more than we do at a particular time. All right, if you don't have internet available, you can do shares through a gateway to an email address. For example, if I want to send it to Baton Rouge, I can send a message to perhaps Tom Whiteside in Texas, who has a gateway, and then it'll get routed. If Cleve and GOSEP have internet ability, it goes to them. Still, we're not clogging up the frequency for those that need to be on it. If neither of those are available, if there's not internet at either place, you can use WinLink Express peer-to-peer, sending the message to NNB6LA and send it. Now, this is part of what changed. This station, sending it peer-to-peer, has been on the air for about 2 years, non-stop. Nobody has to sit in the radio room for you to send something. It functions independent of somebody sitting there managing it. And that's been the biggest weakness in the past, is you had to have somebody sitting there. So this makes a huge difference. If somebody doesn't have WinLink, they don't know how to use it, they can do VeraChat. VeraChat also has a unique ability to send a file. If you've got a file that you need to send, you just connect to GoSep, send it. It works. Generally a text file, and it's done. If somebody at a location doesn't have WinLink, they don't have VeraChat, they have FLDigi, they can broadcast it. And that's where the GSS stations come in to facilitate that process. If there's nobody sitting in Baton Rouge, somebody's available to intercept that and then provide a higher level to go into GoSep. And then down at the bottom, if somebody only has voice, they can once again use the support stations. Any questions about that? Does that make a little sense? All right, now, similarly, on the amateur radio side, WinLink Express at the top, either directly or through a WinLink gateway, peer-to-peer. Yeah, this station's been working for about 2 years nonstop too. FLDigi and voice. Voice is by far the least efficient, because then somebody has to transcribe it and be sure they got it right. And you don't want a D9 tractor versus a D19 tractor, or a vice versa. All right, so let's look if a local OSEP or EOC, and I'll use those interchangeably. I'm sure there's some technical differences, but nevertheless, if you've got a local parish with poor propagation to GoSep, these support stations are there to accept it and move it up the ladder. Not all the parishes have efficient antennas or they have problems, but the GSS stations are there to do as they say. They're supportive. If a OSEP, a parish, has only voice available, which a lot of them do, the GSS station can take that traffic, convert it, and send it to GoSep without anybody sitting at GoSep. Similarly for FLDigi and VeraChat. The support stations are intermediaries to support the local EOCs. Do you need to be an LACP member to volunteer to parish OSEP? Absolutely not. The parishes run their own show. They can do whatever they want to do, however they want to do it, but if they want to use QS100 transmission method, there's nobody at GoSep to decrypt that. You can transmit whatever you want, but the 3 or 4 things that GoSep can intercept at the same time are limited. But the parishes are self-sufficient. The LACP support stations and stations involved with LACP are more than happy to help at each EOC, even those that are a little bit remote. What does the parish OSEP look like? Might look like that. That's the one in Monroe, or West Monroe. Got a 7300, a power supply, a little LDG tuner, an old laptop, a secondary screen that we use sometimes, and that's pretty well it. There's a 2-meter radio up here, but it's not hooked up to anything right now. All right. GoSep's not limited to amateur radio and shares. There's the FNARs, Who knows what FNARS is? It is what?
Only use it to track satellites.
No, it's the high frequency network that FEMA uses. It's developed for two things. First, command and control, and then communications and coordination. It's the high frequency continuity system that uses really nice equipment. That's the FNARS equipment in Baton Rouge. This is the transmitter receiver piece. This is an older piece. So part of the situation in the past has been somebody said, well, I'll just show up and I know how to do it. Well, the likelihood of you walking in and operating that correctly without screwing up is about 0. So that's the reason that Cleve and Jake and the people in Baton Rouge want people that are experienced, trained, and understand what's going on, so we don't mess it up. What does someone have to do to be a GAC or a GSS volunteer? You need to contact Cleve, who's the deputy SWIC in Baton Rouge. There's an application packet that lists some of your experience and things. He'll review it, and then it's reviewed by a couple other people. You have to consent to a background check. They want to know who's doing what. It's not a haphazard, anybody can walk in off the street, and agree to provide the service and be a nice guy or gal. Here's a couple of the antennas in Baton Rouge. You can't see it, but there's a antenna that comes off this for part of the HF piece. Now, if you want to make a difference, consider volunteering. There are opportunities to practice, to learn. You can contact Cleve Franklin at cleve.franklin2@la.gov for an application. He'll set you up. You can contact me, Glenn, Randy. A number of people around can get you hooked up if you have an interest. If you don't want to do that, consider helping at your local EOC. Some of the EOCs have operational stations that nobody does anything with. Others have nothing. And that may be an opportunity. Once again, Cleve Franklin is the point of contact at GOSEP. And that's me. Questions? Bobby.
Okay, back in the day, we were super involved with EOC. We were just tied into a station. Now, just to get in our EOC, to get an antenna on the roof, we had to go through horrible steps to get it. They don't care about amateur radio. Now, I'm going to date myself. 20 years ago, they switched over.
It has evolved. Ham radio is not. It's not, they don't come down to us, we have to go up to them. Emergency management, I've done a lot of stuff in GOSEP, is extremely bureaucratic and extremely professional. So now you can talk to Josh Johnson, he's here from ARL, he was the emergency manager for the state of Arkansas. But the thing is for us to have a relationship with our local OEPs, EOCs, but we have to go to them and say, hey, this is what we can provide to you, these are the services, these are our people, this is our training, this is what we can do for you. So we have to sell ourselves to the emergency management professionals in this state, not vice versa. So,
Yeah.
And that is a big push coming out of ARL and ARES, is this relationship you have with your local OEPs is how we
Absolutely, and it makes a big difference. And one of the things that's evolved over time, well, two things I want to mention. People in emergency management don't always stay in the same position. So somebody that lost communication during Katrina, probably not there anymore doing that, or whichever hurricane you want to name. But Baton Rouge is sending out to the local areas, but the big difference is you could get on at your local EOC and there was nobody in Baton Rouge to talk to. It just didn't exist. That avenue didn't work unless somebody went that had planned to go. That emergency wasn't going to get assistance from Baton Rouge because there was nobody there to talk to. So that's part of what brought this, well, it's a big part of what brought this about. And there was about an 18-month period that this was developed, looking at end-to-end opportunities from GOSEP's in, as well as some of the local managers. What do we need? And then this plan was put together to supply those needs, not vice versa. It wasn't, I'm the ham guy with my handy-talkie, I'm here to help. It had to be end-to-end, and that's what this provides.
Well, we're the most logical group of people to be involved because digital has become such a part of amateur radio. But again, we're volunteers, and if there's no way to listen, you can speak all you want to speak. And our problem is just that we host several events, and we need to have we use the EOC down there periodically, but it's been very difficult because they forget that when all else fails, there's got to be some system that's available.
Yeah. And
we're the most logical people. I do think it's funny that you're right, about 80 meters at Shreveport with your vertical in your backyard. I mean, what do you put up, a dipole to get to Baton Rouge to try to make it better? But you got to know enough about antennas. And as amateur radio, unfortunately, dumbs down, which is what we've done from 25 years ago, we have to get more educated people involved.
Yeah, and if you're talking to your local EOC leadership or staff, and they don't know about the state plan, it's the state plan. It's not a ham radio or Aries plan. You can provide that for them as a reminder that they got this in emails, and it's the plan. It's the state plan. It's not my plan. It's not Glenn's plan. It's the state plan. So if they want to plug into it, that opportunity is there. If they elect not to, that's just their choice. And a lot of emergency managers, to be honest, think they know everything about everything, and some of them do, some of them don't.
Well, I don't know that I'd elaborate too much.
The emergency services. Okay, he's from Ozone, Arkansas, on Highway, it's 21, is that?
Yeah. Actually, I'm from Clarksville, Arkansas.
Well, he's pushing to Clarksville, kind of like people from always say.
The address was Ozone, but I lived in, I'm from Clarksville.
Ozone has 92 published residents. So he went from 92.
Well, it's actually not even an incorporated city.
Okay, so it did from an incorporated city to Newington, Connecticut, and probably the house shock. How much was the house up there? Pretty bad?
Cost of living in Connecticut's the second highest in the country. So,
look how powerful he's become. He's moved from a city that's not even incorporated all the way to Newington, Connecticut, with a powerhouse up there.
Yeah.
You knew Rick Robert, didn't you? So and he's got, look at the gray hair on this man. So he's got it going on.
There was no gray before I went to work.
But evidently the gene pool was from the wrong side. He had the better part of the gene pool. Josh Johnston, I want you to thank you for coming to Shreveport.
Glad to be here.
Part of us. And
glad to be here. Yeah.
Here you go. Here's
all right. So I will just tell you, I like to move around when we're doing this stuff, so I may not stand in front of that microphone, but I think I've been told I've got a loud mouth, so that shouldn't be a big issue. And actually, I want to talk about, so when I started at ARL, give you a little bit of background. I spent 31 years total in public safety, emergency communications, emergency management in Arkansas before going to work at ARL. Started out like many do, volunteer fire department, went to work in our detention center doing dispatch, 911 dispatch. Got out of that, got married, got into the real world, was working a little bit, went back to college, finished up my degree in emergency management from Arkansas Tech University, and went to work for a bank doing contingency planning. So spent a couple of years there, and our county emergency manager position came open, which I worked with the county emergency manager because I was still involved with the volunteer fire department, and actually at that point in time I was serving as district chief for the local volunteer fire department. The county emergency management position came open, and in our county we also served as the fire services director. So we oversaw all the volunteer fire departments and the emergency management for the county. About 26,000 population county, so it's smaller, not a huge organization. All volunteers. I was one of two. We had a part-time, when I started, we had a part-time administrative assistant that worked 4 hours a day. So one of two paid staff in the county that did it paid full-time. Now they have a staff of 3 full-time and still about 30,000 people. So they've got it a little better, but I'm happy to say that of that, during that time, I was the one that actually grew the department, and they're cruising. I tell them, because I'm still good friends with the guys that are there now, I tell them they're cruising on what I built, and they're like, okay. So, so I went to work for ARL full-time in December of 21 as Director of Emergency Management. So my focus solely at that point in time was Aries, and was looking at our MCOM program and looking at what we could do to revamp it. The first thing that I realized is Aries is very different to many different people in many different places. It's something different in not just every state. Somebody says, well, you've got something different in every state. No, we've got something different in every county. Over 3,000 counties or parishes in the United States. And remember, we have some states that are not states. They're commonwealths, which makes things even more difficult. And on top of that, let's add in that we also have cities who are independent cities of their state, such as Carson City, Nevada. The capital of Nevada is almost akin to Nevada as Washington, D.C. is to the United States. They're an independent city. So to say this is going to be the cookie cutter, how everybody will function, is impractical. So I had to, okay, we got to back up and punt. But I've got people from all over the country, right? So let's look at this, and the problem you come into is you get people that go, well, this works great here. This will work perfect for everyone. I had to bring off the blinders and say, no, it's not. It won't, because I already know people here. And ironically, I had people in one state that it's perfect here. This is the way we do it. But I knew people in the same state that absolutely couldn't function that way because of the organization that they're working with. So one of the things we know immediately is Aries volunteers have got to be adaptable to what is workable within their area. So in November of last year, I worked very closely with our field services manager, who oversaw our field services program, clubs, not just clubs, but field services. So all the section managers, we have 71 section managers, which Houston Polson is section manager here in Louisiana. So he worked with all of those. In November of last year, he retired. And after some discussion and talk about kind of how to better vent things and to better handle things, I've taken on both departments. And I'm overseeing both the emergency communications, MCOM Aries, and the field services, which includes all the clubs and so on and so forth. This opens up some really interesting opportunities. It gives me the ability to promote MCOM and emergency management with clubs but it also gives me the opportunity to promote and encourage MCOM groups to think of themselves in some ways as a club. But it also gives me the ability to work closer with the section managers who ultimately, within the ARL structure, have the authority to do all field appointments. So I'm working on a better relationship with the section managers. I don't have to, if I've got an idea on, hey, we're talking about doing this, I don't have to go talk to Mike and sell him on it. And, so we've got one person now that's kind of overseeing and working with all of it. As we get our staff to the point, and we brought on a great, phenomenal assistant in our area who honestly keeps me busy, staying ahead of the things she's fixing and cleaning up within the ARL. Some of it's our framework, our databases, our IT stuff. She's doing a phenomenal job, and I love it because she's keeping me busy to a point. So there's been some changes, and I tell you all of that to let you know that we're going through some evolving, especially in the Aries world. We're looking at a better way to do our training modules. Quite frankly, most government agencies don't even recognize our training courses as training courses. So there's a better way to work it. There's a better way to do it. And we're working right now with some volunteers from around the country to develop and produce a better product for you as our volunteers out in the world. So I'm actually going to, when I was asked to come today, part of it, what we were talking about was clubs. And this year is the 100th year of the ARL Field Service. 100 years since the first field organization was developed within ARL. It's a long time. And we're proud, and this year we've been promoting the Year of the Club. So we produce a monthly club newsletter, just like we do a monthly Aries letter. We are doing a club spotlight this month. We're doing club support for affiliated clubs, special service clubs, so on and so forth. So one of the questions I get asked is, can an Aries group be an affiliated club? Yeah, you can. And we've got several that are. There are some advantages to being an affiliated club, and I would urge you to go to affiliatedclubs.arl.org to look into those. But one of the big things we've done this year is really promote our Marconi program. And it was developed through a grant that they got from us through, that we had gotten from ARDC to promote clubs and promote the ARL. Marconi is an acronym for Motivating Amateur Radio Clubs to Open New Initiatives. Basically, what it's suggesting is that active clubs are healthy clubs. The same thing applies to Aries. If you're an active group, if you're involved in things, you're healthier. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're sitting around waiting for a disaster. You need to be training, you need to be exercising, you need to be seeking other groups. If all amateur radio does is focuses on working with government agencies, we've missed the mark. Because there's a lot of groups, there's a lot of events that can and will benefit from amateur radio and amateur radio support. But if they don't know you're there, they won't ask you to help. I have people all the time go, well, Aries Place isn't road races. Malarkey. I don't believe that. If you're helping with a road race, I'll give you a prime example. I had to go through the interview process. ARL was elected to SAFECOM, which is the advisory group to CISA, dealing with all of their auxiliary communications. And those of you that aren't familiar, CISA oversees, for the federal government, oversees the ESF2, which is the emergency communications function. It's not FEMA. CISA oversees the communications function. And SAFECOM is the advisory group. It's about 90 people and organizations mixed that oversee and work, not oversee, but work with as advisors to CISA on their MCOM, and that's everything from amateur radio MCOM, public safety MCOM, 911 dispatch, cybersecurity in emergency communications, all of that. So ARL, we applied, and ARL has a seat now where we are at the table to talk to folks at CISA about the future of MCOM. That includes the CISA AUXCOM program. I've been on a committee for the last 2 years, through 2.5 years, that's looking at an update to the AUXCOM training program. Now, I will tell you that we have been on a hiatus since the new administration took over. We're hearing that we may be back possibly having an in-person meeting again in November. We haven't finalized that, but we've heard that's a possibility. So, I say all that to tell you that as we look at this, we look at the possibility that I was going through the interview. I started telling you about where road races can really come in and helping with, and I'm just giving one example. I was going through the interview process, and one of the things of going through this application process is I had one of the board members did about a 2-hour interview with me over the phone for ARL on behalf of ARL on what we can provide and what we do. And very early in, he said, I want to tell you guys, I love amateur radio. He was communications chief for NYPD on a date of 9/11/2001. And when the attacks happened and they were bringing in people to their alternate EOC sites, and the tower collapsed, that their primary emergency operations center was in the bottom of World Trade Center. They activated their alternate sites, and the first thing he said is, we've got to get our hams in here because they're the ones that are going to be able to help us. Guess where he had access and where he had worked with hams? Annually, the New York City Marathon. And he had developed so much respect and so much gratitude to what the amateur radio operators in New York City could provide during the New York City Marathon. One of the first things he thought of was, we've got to get some hams in here to help us with our communications issues right now. So road races are big on two things. It provides you a training opportunity without just making something up, and it builds those relationships. Because what I get, the argument I've had from people before is, well, road races aren't really MCOM. They're not really public safety. Well, guess what? You've got law enforcement there at a road race. You've got fire there at a road race. And I'm just using road race as an example. It could be an Iditarod race. It could be a boat regatta. It could be all kinds of things. Bicycle races. We're using bicycle races all over the country, and that's a prime example. I'm just using that as an example. You've got fire. You've got EMS. Annually, the Boston Marathon utilizes about 150 hams from all over the country to come to Boston to assist, and they have to report for operations at 3 a.m. And annually, they have about 150 volunteers, and you have to pre-register. This is not something you just show up to help. You have to pre-register, get vetted to be able to come and assist. But they get about 150 a year, and they are vital and right in the middle of everything with all the public safety organizations. So I say all that tying back to the healthy clubs and are working with struggling clubs. We've got opportunities around the country. Real quick, I want to mention, before I go farther with this, the Marconi program is one example that we've got, and primarily what it does is it gives you a list of activities and ideas for going and doing activities to get your club active and to help your club be active. And it's on our website. This applies to areas or clubs or however you want to do it. It can be utilized for any of. So take advantage of that program. One of the things we did this year too, real quick, and I'm about done with, I kind of got ahead of myself, sorry. This year we'd also, with the year of the club, we did a contest for website and newsletter around the country. We had a little over 100 applicants for each that applied for or submitted an application for this. And we've got our winners. They will be announced at Huntsville in 2 weeks at our ARL National Convention. So just to give you a little bit on where we are for this year, and then I can talk about areas the rest of the afternoon. Like, y'all may have to tell me it's time for the Hamfest to be over. Basic MCOM, since January 1st, we've had 459 people complete that course. The intermediate course, we've had 189. The advanced course that has been listed as the advanced is on hold right now. And as I said at the opening, we are looking to possibly make changes to the whole setup. And so we're not going to rush to put out an advanced course and then make changes to all of it. So we're going to hold on that advanced course till we decide what we're going to do there. The big key to this, and this is where our Aries reporting is important. So how many of you are familiar with the Parity Act that we're working, trying to get passed with Congress right now to help out with HOA issues? So when we go to talk to Congress, one of the first things they ask is, what have you done for me? Since January 1st of 2026, just our Aries volunteers have completed 208,696. By the way, this information is about a month and a half old at this point. 208,696 hours using the FEMA rate of $34.79 an hour. That's a little over $7.2 million. Just the first half of the year. And that's with about 60% of our organization actually doing the reporting that they're supposed to be doing. So it's important to get this information to us to get it to Congress when they ask, because they do ask. That's one of the first things that they'll ask when we go to talk to them is, what value have you brought to us? Well, right now we've brought you a little over $7 million just since the first of the year. So going back to the races and the building relationships, communications and relationship are key to Aries success and support. Building your relationships with either a served government agency or another non-government organization, NGO as we call it, such as Red Cross or hospitals. If you don't have a relationship with a hospital, I encourage you to get involved, talk to people in your area, see what their relationship is, what your local Aries group, what their interaction with their local hospitals. A number of years ago, the CDC actually provided funding to every hospital around the country to have an amateur radio station in their hospital to provide backup communications and support. The fact that we weren't standing at the door when that money rolled in and their equipment, in many cases it was purchased at the state level and they just walked in and said, here's your equipment. And people at the hospital go, what did I do with that? What's this? Guess what we found? There's a lot of it still sitting in a closet in a hospital somewhere because they don't have any idea where it is, who can operate it. Another thing I'll tell you is they had a bunch of hospital employees that went and got their amateur radio license.
We licensed a bunch of them.
Yep. We licensed, so right now the amateur radio is saying just under 800,000 people licensed. David, I would honestly guess, Nate, and this is a guess, this is gospel according to Josh, I would guess 250,000 of those are hospital employees that have never picked up a radio, never talked. Do you count them as hams?
I'm from Memphis. We've got a weekly. We've got like 6 hospitals that
Yep.
we've got.
Yeah.
We do a weekly net just probably.
Right. And the hospitals are looking for that. And that's what I'm saying.
It's a struggle right now.
Well, anyway, and that there again, it's a struggle in your area. We've got other areas that the hospitals are begging for it.
Yeah.
So that's just like what I said a few minutes ago. What's dead set here is not dead set over here.
Josh,
Yeah.
something I want to get at, I was in Hurricane Ida.
Okay.
One of ham radios saved today.
Okay.
Shop Medical Center on the south side of Houma, when it was hit, it was almost in the epicenter.
Right.
Of the hurricane. We're right there on the Gulf Coast, about 20 by 25 miles. They called for a buy, they called and they made a call, they put in, the T1 was out, so 700 megahertz was gone. Ham radio, amateur radio, they did put out a call to the EOC, the EOC was able to motivate, to use the law enforcement and the ambulances, they evacuated Shawberry Medical Hospital.
Okay.
Charity Hospital in Houma, Louisiana.
Right.
The only problem we had, and I'm gonna sit down, and I got all over our people, I said, y'all needed to tell somebody. We don't get any press when we do this, and here's the problem. The only thing we got was a thank you letter from auctioneer who ran the auctioneer system that ran the hospital. Was, man, we're glad to have the hams here, and they weren't. But we don't get public recognition.
Right.
Without that public recognition, folks, they don't know about it.
And that's one of the things we can provide. We are, if there's, during Ida, I can tell you right now, I was begging for information from down here. Send it to us. Get us the information that this happened. Guess what?
I want your business card.
We have people that's what they do, is put out news information nationwide. We've had stories picked up by the AP. We've had stories picked up by New York Times. We've had stories picked up by various news organizations around the country.
I'm gonna tell you why a lot of times local news media doesn't want to pick this up, or why people kind of sweep it under the rug. Nobody wants to look into
Well,
that. It does make local government and local emergency managers
it shouldn't.
emergency, and how did that happen?
It shouldn't, because you should have had that. You should have that relationship with them ahead of time, where all they can say is, "Hey, we had our backup plan come into place.
But
Our backup plans worked exactly the way we had planned for them." And that's where building those relationships ahead of time comes into play. But some of that falls on us. A lot of that falls on
we need
us.
to toot our own horn, is what I'm getting at.
We need to toot our own horn, but we need to walk into it with a bit of humility too.
Exactly.
Because I've seen other cases where hams have walked in and said, "Well, I'm here to run your communications." During the event. Okay? You know what an emergency manager is going to tell a ham that walks in to an event? They're going to say, "Nice to know you. Get out, come introduce yourself sometime. We'll talk after this event's over with." But during this event, so the place for ARES, for MCOM, for amateur radio. Everybody talks about, "Oh, we're Oxcom, we're Oxcom, we're Oxcom." Guess what? We're all Oxcom. Because you know what the ICS, since, by the way, the AUXC position has been added to the, it's been added to the ICS framework officially. The auxiliary communicator position includes amateur radio, whether it be ARES, whether it be ACES, whether it be ACS, whether it be Oxcom, whether it be whatever. Whether it be this old term that died in 1996 with the removal of the War Powers Act, RACES, It's all part of the auxiliary communicator position. Guess what else is part of the auxiliary communicator position? GMRS operators. If you're an Aries group and you're involved with Aries or MCOM, I encourage you to get involved. I would almost promise you there's a GMRS repeater within radio distance of where we're sitting right now.
There is.
Right? So get involved. It's an asset. Get them involved. There's nothing that says, I'll ask this. Raise your hand if you hold an amateur radio license and a GMRS license. I do.
Why doesn't the FCC recognize Aries and FCC?
So Aries is
Recognize you guys as
so here's the deal. The FCC will not recognize Aries as Aries because Aries Aries is a program of the ARL.
but they should. You guys do what?
The FCC is the only federal agency that even mentions races.
I know. It's
But now here's the thing. The only place they mention it is one sentence of one paragraph under Part 97. We have made that petition to them, and we're waiting to hear from what.
I told Ted Cruz that too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have an attorney that works regularly with the FCC. Yeah. So races in many places is by name only. The state of New York is a races state. If you belong to the state MCOM group, you're a races member. We did this.
So way out of date, it's incredible.
You're preaching to the choir. I believe you know. Yeah. No, I keep it.
Racing, and I've done a little bit of research, I'm a legal people, so this is the problem with racing. Racing was started in 1952. The guy that come up with it was Curtis LeMay. Curtis LeMay came up with his idea, and his idea was, he was a ham. He said, if we had a nuclear war, the only people who'd be probably standing would be ham, which he was right.
In the 1950s, he was right.
Curtis LeMay came up with our flyers.
Well, hang on. I'm going to give you the overview. The problem with racing is when they put this in the act in 1952, it was about 9 pages long.
Yep.
The War Powers, he called it War Powers Act. The problem is that at that time, you could be a races operator. They were issuing races licenses. They started with WR4.
Yep.
They had a series of their own block. Didn't require a ham. It required emergency management. They had 2 options. They could either name a ham, or if they couldn't get a ham, they could get somebody with a second-class phone license. Here was the problem with the second-class phone license. A lot of people, it was a backdoor into the ham. Back in, and it got to be a sore point. People were dead, and until the 1960s, you'd have a lot of towns that would have somebody, and the second-class phone operator was a ham. That's why you go in there and you see a limitation of 72-hour operation, 1 time a year. They're allowed to operate on 1 day a week and all that. That's the reason why that's left in there. What we call that in law is
So I think pretty much everyone in this room is in agreement here. So that
we're move on, but the basic thing is racing is basically important. The problem is they've taken away all the other enabling powers and they've left our races there because it was supposed to be a contact on 6 meters. You can contact a military unit and all that.
Anyway, so we all know that there's different factions, there's different groups, there's different whatever.
Yeah.
So the key to all of this, though, that ties into all of it, is sometimes we as amateur radio operators, as communicators, don't do a real good job of communicating. A lot of times, we want to tell the group we're there to serve what they're going to use us for. I would contend we need to spend more time going, what do you need us to do? Here's a list of what we can provide. What can we do? The other thing I would challenge you is if they say, right now we're good on this and this, our communication systems are up and running, we really need somebody to help us answer telephones. Okay, let us help you with that. I'll just tell you right now, from my organization in Arkansas, I had a phenomenal Aries group that I worked very well with, and this is when I was a county emergency manager. We had 2 tornadoes hit our county, fatality in each one. Luckily, it was just one fatality in each one. Hit our county within 10 minutes of each other. One on one side of the county, one on the other. Needless to say, I was a little split thin. I had a group of our hams that come in typically to operate our radios, and my Aries group didn't just operate the Emergency Operations Center ham radios. They ran our public safety radios. They were our entire communications team in the Emergency Operations Center. So they were all hams, but they were running the public safety radios by our authority. They came in, but because one of the tornadoes was fairly close to the areas where they lived, some of them lived, their wives came with them, who are also, by the way, hams in all but one of these cases. They said, hey, what can we do? We're here, can we help you in any way? I said, we had pre-established a phone bank that was not like set up and operational. We had the 4 phones, they were in a cabinet, had the lines come in, you just came in, plugged them in, put in a code, activated them, they came up. And we could start putting out publicly out to the public that if you need assistance, if you need this, you can call this number. But I needed people to operate them. They said, we'll handle it. And within 30 minutes, they had the bank up and running. Within an hour, we had put out information over radio, over 2 or 3 different sources. Back in those days, our fire departments were running analog VHF, and every 3rd house probably in our county had a scanner that was listening to it. So we put out on the radio, hey, the phone banks are open over our fire department radios. Phone banks are open. If anyone needs assistance, anyone has problems, anyone's down, let them know they can call, and gave the phone number. Within 30 seconds, our phone lines lit up. And it was people that were listening to us on their handheld scanner that had no power, that were trapped because the road was blocked with downed trees and power lines, and our phone bank lit up. The beauty that brought from there is the next 5 large incidents we had after that, those 4 ladies showed up and said, phone bank? And I said, yep. And that's all I had to say. They became my auxiliary communications team, not on the radio, but on the telephone. They got good information, they were thorough with what they did, and they essentially had no training. Now, we did do some training with them after the first event to say, hey, here's what went well, here's what went well. If y'all would be interested in doing this in the future, we'd love to have you. So we did kind of put them through some training after the first one. But they absolutely did a phenomenal program. So from then on out, they provided communications for us, but not on amateur radio. Our strengths are to do what we do and do it well. And if you're not there talking on the radio, which in many cases, that's not going to be what you may be asked to do, whatever you're asked or assigned to do it well. Because the next time that something happens, they may ask you to do something else. They're like, they did this very, very well for us. I bet they can handle this too. And it grows that relationship. It's all about growing the relationship. Another prime example is to to be available for technical. A lot of us are technical, you know? A lot of especially in the public safety world, a lot of those guys are utility operators. They know how to push the button, they know how to change the channel, but that's about the extent of it. They may get to their emergency operations center and something go down on the IT side. They can't get IT in. They may have two hams over here that guess what they do as their paid job. They may be IT guys, you know. We've got several of them in our group. Be willing to step over and do whatever's needed. I heard a group, someone told me one time, said, they asked, we got there and we're ready to provide communications and they asked us to help unload a truck of ice. Guess what? The emergency manager was out there unloading ice and the ham group said, no, we're not interested. Let me, and I don't know this, but let me give you the scenario of probably what happened next. No, we probably don't need you. We're probably good. Y'all can just stay home. So don't be that person. The thing I'd also encourage, and this doesn't just apply to Aries. This applies to everyone, and any of you that heard me talk last night with the club, I mentioned this. Embrace new operators. Whether it's a young operator, whether it's a youth, whether it's an old operator like me that's new into the hobby or new into IMCOM or whatever. Don't be that person. They get on the repeater for the very first time. They're thrilled, they're scared to death. They're making their first contact on a repeater, and the next thing they know, they've accidentally said 10-4 because they've heard it on the scanner somewhere. And the very next thing that happens, you can't say 10-4 on this radio. This is an amateur radio repeater, and you will not use 10 codes on the amateur radio repeaters. Guess what just happened? That person just quit. They're done. They're out. Don't be that person. Be embracing and supportive.
I had a birthday on one day for that former repeater guy. First thing I like is CQ. The guy come back and starts chewing his mouth out, saying CQ on a repeater. He's new. Go get his call sign. Do that. Don't be doing that.
Yep.
You don't need to chew him out. Just explain it.
There's another place where I think, especially now as we're moving forward, and I'm talking about where we can move forward, and then I'm going to kind of close things up. CERT has become a different thing in different parts of the country. And in many areas, the CERT program in your community is a perfect place for your Aries group, for any hams to get involved with CERT and be part of it. We've got many CERT groups now that are creating a communications unit or a communications team within their CERT. That to me is a perfect situation. What we've done, what we can provide with CERT and to emergency management, and where I see us being a huge benefit, is situational awareness. It's not necessarily, so since 9/11, there have been untold billions of dollars spent on IMCOM, public safety communications around the country. Every public safety agency in the country has, not just public safety agency, any agency involved with government at all has had tons of dollars poured into their communication system, their backup system, their backup to their backup system. And it's a situation that when all else fails still can happen. Look at North Carolina during Helene. But it's way less frequent. It's much less frequent. But one thing they still need is situational awareness from what's going on out in the field. And I'll give you a prime example where we already do this, but we don't think of it as situational awareness. Skywarn. That's all that is. That's situational awareness. So if you're able to provide, here's what's happening, and I don't mean you have to get out and go anywhere. I'm sitting at my house at 2121 Rochester, and in Shreveport, Louisiana, and I don't even know if that's a real address or not. If I just named your address, it was completely by chance. But if you can say I'm at that address and here's what I'm seeing, and please don't tell them you have a non-rotating funnel cloud. I've heard it on a ham repeater in a state very near here, maybe just to the north. I am from Arkansas, I will claim it. And that was reported over our repeater that we had a non-rotating funnel cloud. It has been reported by the same person at least twice since I've been a ham. Which, if you know the definition of a funnel cloud, it is a violently rotating column of air. So to have a non-rotating funnel cloud is scientifically impossible. Sorry, but situational awareness. We've got opportunities to plug ourselves in, to get involved, and to make those relationships ahead of time where they're not looking for, oh, well, who's this? I've never heard of this person before. Now, that doesn't mean if you're in an area you're not familiar, you can say, hey, give your call sign KE5MHV, and I'm in the XYZ area, and I know I'm not from this area, but here's what I just saw this, or I'm seeing this, or just wanted to make sure you were aware. They're possibly going to check it out if they've got time. They're going to confirm that. I can tell you in up north along the Mississippi River, one of the states, and I've gone blank now on which one, maybe. Anyway, they have used amateur radio operators for a number of years when the Mississippi's way up, just checking for sand boils. They drive the levees to watch for potential levee breach, potential issues. Situational awareness. It's simple. It frees up their public safety. They may need those law enforcement officers, those firefighters doing emergency functions, but we're providing support there. Another place that hams can really be involved to help out public safety, if they'll build the relationships first, is providing support, not participating in, exercises. I'll give you an example, and I'm not saying this is what you should do, but we have in a state, I know of a group of hams that every year provides support for an active shooter training drill that their public safety does. So they want all hands on deck with their public safety organizations to be involved in the exercise. So the hams simply set up to where they have perimeter view of the entire perimeter of this. Usually they do it at a school district, and they'll do the entire school district. So they'll set up hams ever so far apart to where they can ensure that nobody walks across that perimeter anywhere around. A kid coming playing from a backyard that just wants to walk over and play. They don't want anybody on the grounds. So that's what the hams do. And and they have the authority. They've got a ham with one of their leaders, and they can shut down the exercise if they see somebody that's crossed that they can't get them to back off. All they're doing is providing eyes and ears. And communication, they have the communications link back to say, hey, we've got a problem, stop. So those are opportunities to get involved through public service events, through training events, but the key is building the relationships ahead of time. You've got to build the relationships during blue sky events. I'm here, what can I do for you? Here's some of our capabilities. This list may not be all inclusive, but here's some of our capabilities. What can we do for you? Tell us how we can help, and we'll go from there. So any questions at this point? If not, that's all I've got. I will,
Question?
yeah.
Not really a question, I will say, I drive Uber around our area, so I'm doing the storm watch stuff coming in and reporting things like that. We've actually met the head of Fort Worth Weather Service at one of the meetings up there, so he's got an eye on me, he knows who I am.
Right.
So that's something he says, building a relationship, so, and, yeah. building to get the campus. And
Right.
that's what you're talking about, building these relationships out. And one of the clubs I've got there is Bell County ELC, and they are about to plan a live event like you're talking about. Instead of being a Fox Hunt, they want to do an actual areas like event and try to get everybody involved in it.
You mentioned a fox hunt. I'll tell you a situation where fox hunting came in to help us in our fire service. We had a former firefighter that had a handheld radio on our fire frequency, and he was intentionally keying up the radio. And so within a pretty good, we had an idea of what end of the county it was coming from. We used some of our hams and triangulated it out, and we found the guy. And we literally were looking in the window of his house, not like here to there, but like here to that back window at the back, with Yagis pointed at him from 3 different directions, and we're like, that's it. And we had a deputy walk into the front door. It unkeyed, the light went out in the room, and it never happened again, not once. So.
You had talked about putting radio stuff in the hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you 2 examples of where that went really bad. Baylor Scott White Hospital in Temple, Texas.
Okay.
And Spawn Hospital in Corpus Christi, Texas, where they had all that stuff all working great, kicking and working good. And what happened was Baylor bought out Scott White, new management took over. Corpus Christi, the same thing happened. I guess there was some lack of communication, and the management team was, what's all this ham radio? What is all this about? We want it out of here.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that happens. Some of those management sometimes needs to go back and look at their CDC guidelines, because some of them got some mega money for different things.
The N5 CRP club that
Right.
Christie was told to get it all out of there.
Yeah, and the equipment I was talking about was equipment that was provided by the CDC. It wasn't the club's equipment. Yeah.
It's not the ham clubs.
Right. Now, where the ham club comes in is providing somebody to help them with the technical, help them put it up, and provide operators for them. You know.
Now, to be an Aries member, do you have to actually take the FEMA courses?
Yes.
That's required?
Yes.
The 101 course?
Yes.
It's a 101 course? There's 2 of them, right?
So at different levels, we've got 3 different levels. Basic level, ICS 100, 200, 700, and 800. That's it.
Is there anyone gonna give us a study guide for that?
No. FEMA does.
FEMA does.
Yeah, it's all online. It's all an online course. It's absolutely. Here's the thing. If you're in a situation where you're only going to be providing assistance over the air from your residence, so on and so forth, there may be a situation where your EC or your SEC can say, you're okay. But if you ever are going to be involved with direct communications with the Emergency Operations Center, or responding to an event or the Emergency Operations Center, you must have ICS training. And that is because that emergency manager is after the event's over with, they're hoping to get some funding to help backfill the expenses. And if their roster shows that they had people who are not ICS certified on that event and providing assistance during that event, they can lose their eligibility through the Stafford Act. They can lose their eligibility of funding if they had non-certified responders in that event. And according to presidential directives from 2005, ICS training is required. So yes, if you're, there again, if you're providing situational awareness from your home, is it recommended? Yeah, absolutely. You should. And even at level 1, which is what that is, I think we require level 100 and 700. Just so you've at least got some idea of what ICS is. I mean, we've got a few people out there that can't spell ICS. In 3 tries. So yes, it is a requirement, because it's a requirement for the people that we work with. If all you're working with is the Kiwanis Club helping to plan their parade, then now ICS really wouldn't be, although it's a perfect example for using ICS, is doing a parade or something like that. So.
Josh, you hit on something that I've been hitting on for years, building on the legend.
Welcome to the ARRL Forum number 2 with our illustrious Grand Commander, Potentate.
Potentate, high potentate.
Our Delta Division Director, David Norris, who's getting ready to run for director again.
Again.
He's been our director since I can remember, since 1938, 39.
Well, Hiram was still here, so about 36. So that's Hiram was still here.
No, he's been here a long time, but he's wonderful. Guys, you don't know what background work gets done for these Hamfests that go through these guys. They really make, between Houston and David, I have, like I said, I've got them on. I mean, I have to send David text and say, when you get off work today, could you call me again? You know, he probably didn't want to hear that for a while.
Oh, you're fine,
So,
Bobby.
please welcome
You're good.
David Norris. Thank you so
thank
much.
you. Does this thing work? Oh, this is actually, this is the test 1, 2. Look at that. And I broke it. I'm going to take this microphone and hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm a CW guy. Okay, well, welcome to the ARRL Forum for the ARRL Delta Division Convention. Hello, I'm David Norris, K5UZ. I am the Delta Division Director, have been for several years, and welcome everyone. We are celebrating the 250th birthday of our illustrious Republic, and this is a special year, 2026. There's 4 things I want you to take away from today's forum, and Josh hit on some of those earlier. 1, we need to be recruiting new amateurs. And with that, we also need to get them in the league. Why get them in the league? Because we are the organization that represents amateur radio to the world and to Congress, Washington, D.C., and the FCC. We are your voice. Be an Elmer. Be a mentor. We got to help the new hams, teach them right. Keep them interested, keep them in the hobby. And we need to build relationships, just like Josh said, not only with our served agencies, but with our fellow members, our fellow amateurs, and our fellow clubs in the adjacent areas. Get to know the folks. Build a working relationship. And we need to be positive, not negative, about the hobby. You know, there's ways of saying things and there's ways of saying things, as my grandfather liked to say. So a little bit of diplomacy goes a long ways. Don't burn those bridges. It is 2026. Not only is it the semi-quincentennial, got that one right that time, but it's also the year of the club in coordination with that. So we've been emphasizing a lot of stuff on clubs. Josh talked about clubs last hour. We'll talk a little bit about them going forward. Our current leadership for the division right now, we have myself, K5UZ as the director. We have our vice director right here from Bossier, John Mark Robinson. John, K5JMR. We've got Jay Ferguson, our section manager up in Arkansas, N5LKE. We've got Houston here, our great section manager in Louisiana. He's doing a fine job. Really proud that he stepped up for the job. Thank you, Colonel.
Thanks, sir.
And we got Malcolm Cohn, W5XX, who is currently the longest serving, section manager in the league. He's number 3 as far as longevity is concerned in the whole history of the league. And we got Dave Thomason, KM4NYI up in Knoxville, has been our section manager in Tennessee, doing a fine job for us. My mouse keeps sliding down slope. We have a number of assistant directors that are appointed rather than elected. Like John Mark's elected. Actually, he was appointed to fill out Ed's term, but these are elected positions: the director, vice director, section manager. The appointed people that we do generally is geographic in nature, is Corey McCrary, We've got Gary Stratton here, K5GLS. Gary, good to see you. Hadn't seen you in a while. Good to see you out and about, my friend. We've got Ed Hudgens, who was our immediate past vice director, and we've called him our vice director emeritus now. He's also an assistant director for us over in Tennessee. We've got Joe Lowenthal, WA4OVO over in Memphis area. He's part of the Delta Club. We've got Randy Smith up in that northeastern corner of Tennessee. We got Gary Owensby over in the far east of Tennessee. We got Dennis Schaefer in Arkansas, do 5RZ. Dennis is a longtime friend of mine, basically chief cook and bottle washer in Arkansas. Also, these assistant directors can be function specific as well as geographic. And we got Logan Heinzelman, KI5HXE over in Arkansas for youth right now. He's probably going to be stepping down a little bit because he's graduating from flight school, going to go fly, I think, helos for the Army now. So that's where he's headed. We got a vacancy for webmaster, so we want to redo our web page. I've just gotten it back under control, so I'm looking for a new webmaster. That job is open, being advertised. Steve Waterman, K4CJX over in Nashville area. He's our FEMA and WinLink rep over there. He's our assistant director in that. And then Hank Keebler, K3ORX over, works with TEMA in Nashville. He's another assistant director. Along with assistant directors, vice director, director at the division level, we also have standing advisory committee members. We have a DX advisory committee and a contest advisory committee. Our DX advisory committee is Steve Rutledge in for JQQ for DXAC over in Memphis area, and Stan Stockton, K5GO, CAC, over in Siloam Springs, Arkansas, is our contest advisory committee member. Stan says he may be looking to end at the end of this term of mine, and so we may be advertising that one as well going forward. It's up to Stan. HQ staff to be aware of, we got Bart Yankee, W9 Japan. He's our radio sport and regulatory manager. We got Steve Ewald, WV1X, our field program specialist. Steve Goodgame has recently stepped down as our education manager. He's finishing up his work up there and has moved back to Mississippi and got his teaching job back. So maybe hearing more from Steve in the future. And Josh Johnson, who you just had the pleasure of listening to, K5MHV, is our Director of Emergency Management, and he's also our Field Services Manager. So whatever his new title is, they've combined the two, and we just call it Alphabet Soup. So that's what we're calling him, Alphabet Soup, Director of Alphabet Soup. Anyway, talk a little bit about the January board meeting. It's pretty much old news now, but they revised some bylaws. Had pretty good financial report. We've got some money that we've made on the market on our investments, and that's been valued at about $43 million. And it's been up and down a little bit, but it's around that number still, maybe a little higher. Doing well financially as far as I go. The operating budget appears to have run in the red for 25, however. That's just kind of a battle that we fight, nip and tuck. We've discussed removing the $35 licensing fee from the FCC for that. That's mandated by Congress. Probably not going to happen, but what they're looking at, since they're losing money on that enterprise, it's costing them more to administrate it than they're making. May just be a one-time fee to charge everybody and then go from there. Maybe cheaper to do it that way because they're losing money at it as it stands. We developed a number of things on the awards. Still looking at shortening the election cycle for division elections. And we're looking at ways to involve and recruit the GMRS community as amateurs. That's a good resource right there, a good recruiting ground. So we're still ongoing with that. That was January. Those are being worked on. Some of those things have been accomplished. Let's talk about July. What happened in July? Well, the big thing, of course, is we looked at revising the articles and bylaws on adding Alabama to the division. So I'm going to park that one for just a minute. The investment returns are still doing well into 2026. Our investment portfolio, again, is still up 43 million plus, and up and down a little bit. We did revise the articles and bylaws to allow our CEO to offer membership premiums and discounts with the approval of the Administration and Finance Committee of the board. So be looking for membership deals going forward. We need to be recruiting folks, and I think any good economics professor will tell you that if you want to sell more of something, you lower the price. And we did a little experiment with that back in March and April, and we did a little special, director special at the Hamfest, and we knocked $10 off, and we sold a bunch of memberships. So we took that data, and we're going to move forward with it. So be looking for membership specials on your renewals and new members. Monthly recognition of the new ARRL members are going to be put out somewhere, QST, on the website. We're going to be looking at sending out things to new hams when they get their ticket to have them join the league and promote the benefits as such. That's being investigated. We're going to come up with a plan. We're going to look at the creation of a new ARRL affiliated commission program online form. That's free money, folks, but the complaint that we get is that the paperwork's just too deadgum complicated and confusing for us to fill out. So we're going, and it is, I agree, yes sir, thank you. So we're coming up with an online form that's going to help it, it's going to streamline it, where you can just make a one-stop payment and tally it up and make it where it can roll going forward through the year. So a lot of things are going to get fixed with that, we do hope. The other thing we looked at doing when we were investigating that is we've increased the affiliated club commission for ARRL member renewals from the $5 to the $10. So the club's going to get more monies back. You need to promote that at your club. Have your ARRL term members renew through the club. It's a little more work for the secretary and the treasurer, but you get $10 and it helps the league and it's free money to the club. And what you do with that free money at your club is your business, as long as you don't break the law.
And new members, the commission is even better.
Yeah, it's even better. So you're looking at a higher cut, but that's bumping that paltry $5 up to 10, and we think that that will help. That's kind of seems to be the magic number from our investigations and experiments. We created an incentive program for ARRL sections. This will be rolled out and fine-tuned a little bit with some of the help of some of you section managers to offer an incentive to the sections that submit timely and accurate reports. We have a problem getting people to report, and if we gave you a little increase in your section budget for that, I think it would help. So that's what we're looking at. So we'll be working with you on that. But we discussed again the importance of unity in ARRL as it relates to the sport of our legislation in Congress that's currently being put forward. Now, let's talk a little bit about Alabama coming into the section. That was put out in the news blurb that headquarters sent out on the synopsis of the meeting, which is a good thing. I'm glad they're doing that because it's pretty quick reporting and you don't have to wait on us to edit and cut out parts and do what we want to do with the minutes that we do at the board meeting. This way you get the skinny of the main things that happened at the board and get it quick. Alabama, we've been talking to them with the section manager down there, their section folks, the division folks in Southeastern Division for a little while. Alabama kind of makes sense because it squares up our geographic boundaries within Delta Division. The other thing is we're looking at trying to equalize the membership in the divisions with the way we've got our sections drawn and where they're sitting in divisions. These division lines, I think currently were drawn in 1952. That seems to be a magic year for some reason on a lot of things. But the current divisions, I believe, were established in 52. And there may have been a little bit of change going forward, but as they stand right now, that's basically what you're looking at. Well, that was partially, or a lot, based on population of amateurs and members in those sections at that time. Well, that's greatly shifted. What's the largest division right now? It's the Southeastern Division. Alabama's in the Southeastern Division. Delta is a medium to small size population-wise division. Geographically we're not, but you know, population-wise, ham population and membership population, we are smaller. The most members are in Southeast, but it stretches from the south of Florida, the South Florida section, all the way up to Alabama and Georgia. The highest concentration of amateurs and members are in South Florida, so generally that's where you get your division director, with the exception of Gary, who was it? The gentleman from Alabama. Was Greg Surratt. Boy, I lost the name there for a minute. Greg Surratt was director a couple of times from Alabama. But outside of that, it's generally they've been from Florida. Frank Butler was for many years their director out of Florida. So this kind of helps the folks in Alabama. Again, they don't see a director nowadays very often, and that's kind of helps balance out the equation membership-wise. So they are in favor of doing it, and I polled our section managers at one of our cabinet meetings, and they thought it was a good fit. So the discussion went with the two directors, Mickey Baker and I got talking about it. We started talking about this a couple of years ago, in fact. And Mickey said, yeah, said, I'd like to do that. He says, it makes sense. He says, it's a kind of stretched out division, awkwardly shaped, and I've got more members than I know what to do with. And he said, let's look at doing this. So we did. We discussed it again with the section leadership in Delta Division, with the leadership down in Southeast and Alabama in particular. And Alabama's section manager is a guy that is from Arkansas. So Dennis Littleton is a guy who is an old Arkansas ham, and he from Helena, actually, West Helena. He says it's a great idea, let's look at doing it. Well, Mickey said, well, I don't want to do it until after the National Convention, which is coming up in 2 weeks. So July board meeting rocks around, and Mickey doesn't make it. So Andy Maluzzi, his vice director, is a young guy, is an engineer, works for Disney, was filling in his stead, and he said, you know, let's go ahead and move that. And I said, well, is Mickey for it? He said, yeah, Mickey will go for it. So that's where we are now. Andy, I said, you need to learn how to draft a motion, young man. So he drafted a motion. I edited the motion. We got it put up. He was the mover. I was the second. And it covers all the necessary aces, spaces, punctuation marks, and sentences and paragraphs that would be changed to the bylaws and articles in the pertinent sections. And we put it out to the board. It was a bylaw, considered a potential bylaw change, so being thrown out at the last minute required us to have 12 votes. And I said, well, it may be close. Well, we put it up to a vote, and it wasn't close. It passed unanimously, 15-0. Everybody's in favor for it on the board. So there we are. Squares us up geographically. I think it's a good fit. It's another Southeastern Conference team, actually two coming in, Auburn and Alabama. But kind of go around the room and see what everybody's opinion is. Y'all think it's a good fit? Steve? Yep. Houston, you're down with it?
It makes sense. I first heard about this when I was in Dayton, 2024. And this was back when they were first starting to look at changes for governors, just because of
the imbalances.
Yeah.
And I had multiple directors kind of corner me, and understand, I've now been section manager for all of 6 weeks.
New guy.
Yeah, new guy.
New guy.
So, yeah, so I hadn't had a chance to be biased in anything. And they asked me about, well, what do you think about West Virginia? What? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Kentucky? No. And I said, yeah, here's the problem. Right now, if you got a Louisiana vice director, and he's got to go to a Hamfest in Kentucky, it's a 2-day trip at best. I mean,
Yeah.
Easy. This makes more sense because just the numbers and everything, it fits. Their issues are the same as ours. During hurricanes, they're going to get it, we're going to get it. So it just, to me, it just makes more sense than anything else I've heard.
Yep. Thank you, Houston. You know, it was, a question was put to me by someone in Tennessee. Says, well, how's that going to affect you as director being able to go to all these places? And I said, well, let me tell you, I'm sitting in Knoxville, Tennessee right now, and I said, any point in Alabama is closer than where I'm standing at this point. So it's not going to affect me any more or any less. So, you know, I'm game to travel. I'm good to go. I can hop in a plane, fly over there if I need to. So it's no big deal. But as Houston says, considering other sections being at West Virginia, who came up with that idea? That was like
3 guesses, first 2 don't count.
no, I know where it came from. I know exactly. It was and adding Oklahoma too. That was in that equation as well. You remember that? Yeah. It was kind of crazy. I don't know how you were going to get from. Well, anyway, I digress. But I think it's something we're going to look at. What's going to happen next is we put together a poll at headquarters, and it's going to go out to Alabama. Mickey and I have looked at it. We've approved it. David Minster, our CEO, excuse me, is going to send it out, and the members are going to vote on this and get their feedback, and then Delta Division is going to get something similar. And you guys get a voice in this. We're not going to shove this down anybody's throat with the membership. That's not the goal here. But I just think it's a good fit, and we'd like to help equalize the voting block, if you will, across the league. And if this goes well, you're probably going to see other redrawing of lines because the population has so shifted in the last 70, 80 years that it's time to, you know, look at this. Not going to be anything radical, but we've got a number of issues in New England, Northeast in particular, where we've got states carved up and they're in different divisions. So how do you represent folks in Albany, New York, when it's sitting between 2 divisions and they've been losing population, hemorrhaging in the last few years? How do you do that? Well, this is probably the first step towards getting some parity and balance. Anything further on that from anybody? Comments?
And David, one
Yeah.
thing to point out with all of this, you have some sections that are bigger in multi-section places, California, Florida, Texas, that are bigger than some of the large sections in the states. We've got here in Louisiana about 950 members, which is not that big. But then you start looking at South Florida, they have more members than North Dakota or South Dakota.
Yeah.
And now you start to try to look at how do you make this a little more equitable.
Yeah, you know, we created another section in Florida a few years ago, West Central Florida, because they were getting so many hams that they decided to, you know, do it. But it's all in one division, so, you know, legislatively, they can deal with things in Tallahassee through their division and the unified effort with the sections in Florida. The other thing is California is a mess. I mean, it's just going to have to be. There's just so many out there. That population's so big that's probably going to remain 2 divisions between Pacific and Southwestern. But Southeast, I think we can. You know, we got clean lines, state lines. We can deal with adding Alabama. New York is broken into 2 divisions, several sections, and they're probably going to look at next thing bringing it in to Hudson Division. For example, in South New Jersey, North New Jersey, they may switch around because that they're down to about 5,000 members in that division. We have a section in Delta that's bigger than a division. Tennessee has more hams in it than does Dakota Division, and that's 3 states. So that's probably going to be another area we'll look at, is what can we do up in that area, to that northern part, to kind of help that division. Because that's, again, we've got a section that's larger than a division, but they get as much representation on the board as does Delta Division, 4 states. And, we're much larger, as a division, much larger than Dakota. That's the smallest one. Any questions, anything further on this? You'll be getting a survey. So be on the lookout for that. We'd like your feedback. We're not going to shove it down anybody's throat. We want to make this an agreeable union and a good agreement. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what we got going on in Congress. We've got HR 1094 and S495, which is the Amateur Radio Emergency Preparedness Act, and we're trying to look at going after the HOAs, at least getting you the ability to negotiate and put up a good antenna. I hope it happens, because that guy is in one of those neighborhoods. Houston, Colonel Polson lives in one of those neighborhoods, and we've got, we're gaining sponsors. We've had a letter writing campaign. How many people got online and got a letter out to them? Good. Well, we need to do that. We're still doing that. We're still collecting them. We're starting to deliver the letters, and it's turning some heads. We're trying to get it attached to some legislation. I think it will make it through the House. Now, the Senate's anybody's guess, just about like anything else in the Senate right now. It's just about become non-functional. And, but hopefully we'll get it attached to something like the defense bill or some critical piece of legislation, and it'll sail right through. If it does, the President will sign it and we'll get some relief. But we got to keep pressure up until then. Maybe calling on some of you to contact key members of your legislature, especially here in Louisiana, where we have the Speaker of the House. We could always use that help. I'm going to be calling Tom Cotton's uncle, who is also a ham, and set up a meeting with Senator Cotton up in Arkansas. And I think Senator Cruz is fully on board with this down in Texas. He's a real big proponent of ham radio, and he's become a real big proponent of this bill. And we need to push this thing. I want to thank Director Stratton, John Robert Stratton, our West Gulf Director, my counterpart over in Texas, for his hard work on this. We've kind of unchained him back last year with the motion I put forward, and let him rock and roll on this to kind of get that unagreeable committee to leave him alone. So hopefully we'll make some headway and get this passed. Not only you writing the letter, but just as important, maybe more importantly, is get your club to write a letter. If you haven't done so already, please do. Because that's a club that we represent 152 members. They read that, well, here's an organization that represents 152 of my constituents. That carries a lot of weight. Please do so, if you have not. It's all online, it's real easy. Talk a little bit about our membership statistics. Of course, again, when you raise the price on something, you sell less. We've been losing members, and there's a couple of things going on with that. But dues increases, QST is one reason. Our demographics is another reason. Our March numbers for the division were 6,024. It came up a little bit from the previous month, so it's been kind of oscillating. Nationally, it's been kind of about a -5 going forward. Again, we're down a little bit for May. Up in March, down a little in May. Let's rock into July. We are down a little more. Going a little worse than the national trend. The national trend's slowing down a little bit. Look at it as a graph, charted this, going to May. Kind of up and down a little bit. Nationally, overall has been down. We're oscillating, they're down. So, again, we pass that motion to offer discounts, and hopefully we'll sell more membership. But you need to be involved in the league if you're in ham radio. And it's like my Elmer told me when I first got a ham, came a ham when I was a teenager, he handed me an application, said, "You're joining the league." And I said, "Why am I going to do that?" He says, "Because it's the right thing to do." And I'll leave it at that. Here's what's dragging us down too on the other side of that equation, along with membership pricing. We guess that the average age of the ARRL member is about 66. This was last year when Rick had what information he had to run this. And again, that's based on the information we have. We haven't been able to get age on people for a while, so we don't have just a real good picture. Europe, on the other hand, does have a pretty good picture because most of those regulatory agencies there for telecoms do collect that data and do put it out. And the average age for an amateur in Europe is now over 70. That's not a good trend. That can't be sustained. So that's why we're making a big push at the league for youth. That's why we got the Teachers Institute. That's why we're making an effort to get the young people involved. And like I've always said, I will take kids from age 8 to 80. So everybody's game. Another existential threat that we're being faced with right now, I don't know how many of y'all have heard about the Shortwave Modernization Committee. What's this? What is the old Shortwave Modernization Committee, the SMC? Well, basically what these guys are doing, they're real-time stock trading on HF radio, HF digital radio. It's 20 kilohertz, it's 20 kilowatts, it's wideband data transmission that's frequency agile. They wipe out huge sections of the HF band. It is also kicking up a lot of interference adjacent. We've been studying this where those experiments have been going on. And it is an extreme interference issue. Now, why would you want to trade stocks on HF? Well, they figure it's a little bit faster than fiber optic. And when you're making these big stock trades, just a few microseconds can net you millions. So that's what that's all about. This would render large segments of our HF bands, 17 meters, 20, 15, 10, 40, absolutely unusable because of the interference. So this is being studied. We're monitoring and reporting to the FCC, so we'll figure out where this goes. If this actually works for them, we may have a problem. I'm going to tout this again, kind of shift here abruptly, but how many of y'all have heard of the library book set from the league? Well, if you're looking for a way to get in to recruiting more hams in your community, this may be a good door opener with your local library. Librarians and libraries publicly are looking for programs, looking for presentations. This would be a great door opener, a great warming gift for these folks. Take them that book set. Go to your club and take them this book set. And you can see the titles involved there. It's the handbook, it's the radio antenna book. It's all kinds of a packet of things. And donate that to them and say, we would love to put on a program on amateur radio. Well, where this has been tried in Mississippi and parts of Tennessee, they've opened the door to the library system, and they're running classes now. They're getting new hams. The Madison County, Mississippi library system, they've partnered with Nissan and made this part of their STEM training. You know, they've put in 3D printers, and they're teaching ham radio, and they're building antenna parts off of 3D printers. And Nissan's being real smart about this because that's future factory workers. They're learning how to run that equipment. That's future engineers. And this is a very smart approach. This needs to be replicated, but this is available. This is a good tool to use. We will sell this to you at a very discounted price, and it gives you an opportunity to get new hams and new members in your club. And it also helps our STEM program, gets us more engineers, gets us more skilled workers in this country. But you gotta go and you gotta pitch it. Open that door, and again, build that relationship. There's another relationship to build, and it can be quite beneficial. My mouse keeps sliding down slope. Well, again, that's just part of what any of us can do to help grow the hobby, help save the hobby at this point. I would be really remiss saying that it's, you know, not a rosy picture here. But there's a number of things we can do, and one thing that we all need to think about doing, how can we double our size as a hobby, as an organization? You, one person, can recruit one new ham, one brand new ham, and if everybody did that, we'd double in size. You can again approach your local public library with the book set. You can approach your scout troops. That's another good selling group. Another group that nobody's thinking about is your ROTC group and your JROTC groups out there. You know, we've been training Marines around the country, getting their ham license because they had a shortage of radio operators, people that just didn't know how to operate radios. And that was a door opening. We've been licensing Marines at Lejeune. We've been licensing them at Pendleton. We're spreading out to the Marine Corps air stations, getting these guys licensed, and they're getting radio operators now. That deficiency is being addressed, and guess what? These guys are becoming hams. Hoorah. Reach out to your friends that might be interested. Approach your schools with the STEM aspect of ham radio. I wouldn't be an engineer where I am today without ham radio. That's how I got into it. And then approach your local GMRS or FMRS groups. There are a lot of hams in there, but there are a lot of would-be hams, and that's a good, fertile recruiting ground. Well, I'm going to end it up now and tie the bow on it and go with the four things that, again, I want everybody to take away from here. I want you to recruit new hams, be an Elmer, be a mentor, build those relationships, and be positive, not negative about the hobby. Be kind to your fellow ham. I want to thank Sara, the club, for being great hosts for this convention. You guys are fantastic. You are a high-functioning club, and congratulations. And with that, we'll let the big chief on the test pattern have it. Any questions? Sir?
Yes, sir. So, I think I misunderstood what this meeting would be about, but it's okay. It's well, with the ARL and recognizing that you guys, you know, the structure behind it, I think is kind of focused.
Yeah.
And we came with it, 3 generations of newbies.
Uh-huh.
And my dad was,
Take care.
You too.
big one, but he recently passed before we were able to transfer that kind of generational knowledge, so we missed out on it.
Yeah.
So what we're looking for is a why. You're looking. You mentioned, bringing more people in. It's kind of hard unless they know there's a reason.
Right.
Because this stuff's expensive. It's hard. It seems like it's hard to start. So that's where we are. We're thinking, how in the world? We walk around this, and it's there's lots of knobs and all kinds of stuff, but how do we get started? So, but why? I'm just curious. What would you say? Why? And then how?
Let you go first.
Those two questions right there, I think, you might want to answer.
Okay. Let me kind of answer that. First off, the why. When Congress approved amateur radio getting licensed different frequencies in the 18th and 1930s, we are the amateur radio service. They don't recognize it as being a hobby because they look at it as being a group of people that are going to be working to move forward in science and technology. And when you stop and look at that and say, well, yeah, okay, fine. Let me give you an example. We know this guy as Joe, all right, for example. The rest of the world knows him as Dr. Joseph Taylor, Nobel laureate. Okay. What did he do? He got his Nobel laureate for working with the He turned that into a system that's being used by the Navy to help identify other submarines.
Mm-hmm.
And we use it to help us make contacts with digitally that you can't see the signal on a graphic waterfall. Okay. Now, what does that mean? Okay, you ever go into a place like the Olympics or something like that, and you walk in and you get real high pitch? That was something that Hams came up with for the way that we use a digital format.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because they use the same technology, they moved it forward. Okay, so we've been moving the boundaries along that way. Second, there's hardly ever a special event going on, certainly in Louisiana, I think throughout the nation, where they're wanting communications. Okay, now, this thing is great if I want to talk to you. But if I want to talk to you, and you, and you, and you, and you, I got a problem. Because I got to call all 5 or 6 of them.
Yep.
With radio, I hop on this. We're all on one frequency, and I can give you the same information at one time. Now that's important when you're talking in terms of safety incidents. When hurricanes, when disasters strike, believe it or not, cell phones don't work because they only work as well as the towers. And the way that's set up is that they put them at the corners of a 6-sided cell. If you lose this tower, not only do you lose part of it, but the other 3 cells as well. When you're trying to make a contact, when a hurricane comes through Lake Charles, and the internet's out, and the cell phones are out, and your family living in North Carolina wants to know what's going on, that's how you get the information back to them.
Mm-hmm.
During a thunderstorm, National Weather Service is wanting to know what's going on. Radar is great, but I see a tail that says there's rotation, maybe, possibly, sort of, kind of. What's actually happening? I've got debris tail, I've got touchdown, it's coming up this way, and I can tell them exactly what's going on to help their work. Last year, I testified before the House about a balloon bill because they were wanting to prohibit the release of balloons for environmental purposes. So I went down and said, hey, all balloons are not bad. We release balloons, I don't know if Sarah's done it recently, but club down in Lake Charles, the Southwestern Club, they launch quite often. And these will include of systems so that we can track it. Every time that they have a Teachers Institute in Millington, they release a balloon. And some of these balloons have gone around the world multiple times. The thing here is that National Weather Service uses our balloons to help modify, to refine their algorithms for their big balloons that they launch at 6 a.m., 6 p.m. Okay? So all of this is based off of what ham radio is doing. Now, we're not all doing it all together. As David said, he's big into CW. I think Da-da-da is wonderful. Frankly, my dear, I'm not into it. Okay? I'm digital. Okay? We can talk about that till the cows come home. Okay? John Mark over here, John Mark likes to talk to people. He's very quiet today, but he likes to talk to people. And he's going to get on the air and he's going to be doing sideband.
Yep.
You got Mike. Mike is very much into digital voice. So it's a huge buffet. And what you want to do is fun for you. We've got guys that, there are a couple of guys at the Hamfest today. You can talk to them and they will tell you, oh yeah, the satellite IO7 is going to be coming over from out of the northeast about 345 degrees. It's going to be going southwest. We're going to have about a 10-minute window where we can make contacts. That's what they get into.
Yeah.
And see, that's the whole thing. And when you talk about, oh, it's expensive to get into, this radio cost me 25 bucks. And I can talk using this radio to anywhere within a 40-mile radius. Okay. So, you know, yeah. Why? Do you like to fish?
Not as much as I like the radio.
Okay.
I know what you mean.
But
Yeah.
okay.
I hear what you're saying.
I had a young man today say, well, I like to fish. Great. You use that fishing pole to catch supper, and then you, at the night, you stick it in the ground and you use that as one part of an antenna system in the park. Because there are guys out there that will just absolutely go for a park because they want to talk to parks on
Parks
the air.
on the air.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's a spot for everybody.
Yeah.
And the key here is to find out what you want to do.
Yep.